Hello, Gen Chem 2, and welcome back. This is towards the end of our kinetics series of videos, and I love it. It's one of my favorite videos, and we're actually going to take our kinetics and we're going to look at our rate law just a little bit deeper. I love it because we've just spent how many videos and how many different equations actually calculating concentration versus time or rate versus concentration. All of that data is exactly where you start in any kind of kinetic study. But the information that we get out really doesn't just stop there. We can learn about something called our mechanism from the order of a reaction. Now, this is pretty amazing. So what is a mechanism? Our mechanism is literally how that reaction happens. We're going to track what might be happening literally in your flask for that reaction. So how does that reaction happen? And then this is a concept we're going to carry all the way through organic chemistry, and in other science classes like inorganic, we'll have a mechanistic pathway. Same thing with biochem. So mechanism is literally how is that process happening. And our first piece of information in a mechanism is the order of the reaction. So let's actually take a minute to look at the order of a reaction just a little bit deeper than what we've been looking at. And then we're going to define something called the rate determining step. So let's start with just order. What does the order of a reaction really mean? Let's start with the most basic reaction. And I'm just going to put a general something like this up there that we've already been looking at. So when we write our rate law, we are looking at those starting materials. Well, what if our most basic rate law is this? We end up with 0. So what does that actually mean? What if we have 0 in both of these or just 0 in one of those? Your overall rate or your overall order of your reaction, if it's 0, it means that those species are not a step in your mechanism. Oh, that seems like a color code moment. Hang on. That means A and B are not a step in your rate determining step. They're just not a part of that rate determining step. It doesn't mean they're not present. It doesn't mean they're not in your reaction. It means they're not in your rate determining step. So there's lots of ways that we can actually see rate and see 0 order. But there's also, let's work our way through. So 0 order means it's just simply not part of your rate determining step. So what about a first order process? How can we see a first order? Well, we can have just one species, right? And that would be first order. So that means that that species, whatever it is actually present in your rate determining step. But it's by itself. So literally that whatever your compound is, whatever this is, it is decomposing in the rate determining step. That's what that order means. That means that that first order compound, whatever it is decomposing in that rate determining step. And it is by itself. That is a step in your process. So what happens when we get up into a second order? How can we have second order? Well, we could have 2 A's, or we could have an A and a B. Both of these are second order processes. And for both of those, it means that each one of these is present in your rate determining step. It would mean two A's or an A and a B are present in that rate determining step, which I'm going to start abbreviating RDS. Okay. So how does that happen, or what does that tell us about a mechanism? As soon as we get into second order and above, so second order and up, these are collisions. So let's review. Zero order, not present in the rate determining step. First order, whatever it is, it's decomposing. Second order and up means that these are collisions. So you would have to have an A and a B smack into each other for that reaction to happen. Isn't that awesome? So literally your order is telling you the species that have to collide in your rate determining step. So order can give us all kinds of information about what's happening in the reaction. Again, it doesn't mean that something's not there. It just means it's not participating in your rate determining step. So let's get a little bit deeper with actually defining what a rate determining step is, because that's a little bit confusing, right? What if you have a reaction of A and B, only B is zero order? Well, it's still there, but why is it zero order? So this is where we have a little bit of fun. 1977, the toll plaza explanation for our rate determining step. So this is in a nutshell, what this explanation is. Let's say you're trying to time your commute and you're trying to tell your friends, it usually takes me 20 minutes to get through work. But let's say you take the toll in New York State. So when this Nobel Prize was given and this explanation was given, this is when you had to go through toll plazas where you would drop change in the toll plaza. So if anybody's been up to New York, that's still pretty common. You're going through these freeways and you have to literally slow down and chuck change into the toll plaza in order to keep going. And so if you imagine that your commute includes one of those toll plazas, then how would you gauge your time? Your time would be based on how long it takes you to get through that toll plaza. Okay, what do I mean? Let's say it's only 5 miles from home to work, but you have a toll plaza right in the middle. Well, you know, if you're going through that toll plaza at 2 in the morning and there's nobody there, then your commute is going to be 10 minutes. It's going to be fast. But now if you're trying to go to work at 8 a.m., when everybody and their brother is going through that toll plaza, you're going to have to sit and wait for the 2,700 cars in front of you to dig through their purse and find their change and chuck it in the toll plaza, all while getting slightly angrier with each person who doesn't have their change ready. So when you're going to then evaluate your commute, the one piece of that commute that really determines how long it's going to take you to get to work at 8 a.m. is the toll plaza. The toll plaza is your rate determining step. So the entire rest of your commute is fast. It's still there. It's still happening. You still have that 5 miles to drive to work. But the one thing that slows you down is how long it takes you to get through the toll plaza. That is our rate determining step. So let's kind of bring back in Hess's law. Let's try to connect this idea of a rate determining step with something we've already seen in thermodynamics. When we looked at Hess's law, didn't we look at an overall goal reaction? So this is the actual reaction that you're studying. This is what's happening. But that doesn't mean that Mother Nature has this happen in one step, where this collides with this and it makes this and this. That doesn't always happen. In fact, that really rarely happens. So what are we looking at? Let's say the actual reaction happens in 2 steps. So it's actually 2 steps. And what you need is an NO2 to collide with another NO2, and you make an intermediate NO3. That NO3 isn't really gonna last because as soon as you make it, you turn around and use it. And then that intermediate bumps into carbon monoxide, and then you make your products. So out of this whole process, okay, what part is your rate determining step? So this is where you study rates and you would see, okay, well, what about this first one is the slow step. This second one happens very fast. Well, that first step then is your rate determining step. It's always your slowest step. That doesn't mean it's the only step. It means it's the slowest step. So your fast step is still happening. Your intermediates, you use those up and they're gone. And then what happens in your overall process then when you look at your rate law? So our rate law has to reflect the slow step, and it has to reflect what's happening in the slow step. So our NO2, we have 2 of them smacking into each other as the slow step. So that means your rate law would be this. I realize that looks messy. Let's try that again. Your rate law is NO2, 2. They need to collide. But wait a second, Dr. Morty, carbon monoxide is in the product, or it's one of our reactants. Where is that? Well, that would end up 0 order. It's still there. You don't have to write it. It's still there. It's still one of your reactants. It just happens to show up in the fast step. That's what your 0 order means. This is going to be in the fast step. And this is in the slow step, or your rate determining step. So you can tell between your actual mechanism, if you know it, it has to match your rate law. And your rate law can also tell you your mechanism. So the important part of this is that this matches the slow step. All of these have to match. So your rate determining step has to match your rate law. So let's try another one, and let's do a couple of these and see if we can, let's spell out another one, and then we'll write the rate law, and then I'll give you the rate law in another one, and you tell me what's going on. So let's see if we can't get another page here. Let's get another page in our, okay, and then let's draw some more examples. All right, so let's take and let's do another equation. I am going to choose one that's kind of just, let's start small. Okay, our overall process, so our goal reaction or the overall reaction, 2 NO2s are going to make 2 NOs plus oxygen. Okay, that's our goal. That's our overall reaction. But it turns out this reaction happens in 2 steps. So we have NO2